Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's been a busy few weeks for you, obviously going around pretty much the globe promoting this thing.
Yeah,
So really appreciate your time today.
great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm a big fan of your work and what you've done in these films. And, I was just saying to Joelle just before you hopped on that I saw the movie a second time today and had me in tears a second time after
Oh,
watching it. It's such a special movie. So for you, this must just be an amazing experience, finally
that's
getting
my
this out
job, Josh, is to make you cry.
there. You do it very well.
Thanks.
But you shared this role for such a long time, obviously with Bradley Cooper, but this time around, you're actually lending your voice to Rocket in those scenes, obviously exploring a really tragic origin story. So, what was it like for you to obviously get that side of him as well this time?
Yeah, you know, Rocket is a character that's really close to my heart, and to me as an actor and as a performer. I think that one thing that makes Rocket unique is that it takes a team of people to create Rocket. So it's not just any one person. It's my brother James uh, writing and creating the character, and then the work that I do on set and the visual effects team taking those pieces and putting it together, and then obviously handing it off. And Bradley's so magnificent as portraying the character that we see on screen and kind of putting it all together and making it all pop and it's so great. But for me, it's like it's a reminder that art is a collaborative process, and it's never really just one person doing all of the work. And I love being able to kind of jump in and do my part, particularly for this movie, for this third movie, where we dig so deep into Rocket's backstory. Being able to lend what I could to make the character work was very special.
Yeah, and in terms of finding that younger Rocket's voice, I mean, what did that
Mhm.
process look for you? Were you trying to obviously imitate what Bradley's done, or was it important that maybe you didn't head down that route and you just create a young Rocket?
No, I'm Rocket's voice. So we first see Baby Rocket, and that's a different a very young actor with the first time we see Rocket speak. And then there's the whole sequence with the who we call Young Rocket, where I'm on the where Rocket's on the High Evolutionary's knee, and then he goes into the room, and he's talking about what's going on, what's going wrong with the turtles, and and then by the time we see Rocket the next time, when they're laying on the ground and talking about the sky, that's Bradley by that point. So the interesting thing is that I didn't know they were going to use my voice. I'm always doing a voice as Rocket, so I do from the first movie when I'm playing Rocket. I have my thing that I do. It just isn't. It's not used, which is fine. I never expected it to be used. It's like I'm just trying to give the actors something that they can work with. So in this movie, it was actually a surprise. I did work on the voice because I wanted it to sound right when we're playing the scenes. But it was a surprise. It wasn't until honestly, it wasn't until a couple of months ago that they were like, "Hey, we're going to use your voice for those scenes," which was a surprise, and I'm honored that they did it. But it's just part of it goes back to what I said originally, which is that it takes a team of people, and you kind of do what tends to work best, and whatever the situation calls for.
Well, that's amazing. And you have, I can't downplay it, you've been such an important part of bringing Rocket to life. And, looking back, there's that quite now iconic photo of you working on the first movie where you're decked out in the green lycra, and obviously Dave Bautista's got his hand on
Yeah.
his head. But how would you say the process has evolved since then? And has it maybe changed your approach to Rocket, almost 10 years on, I guess, since you first worked on the franchise?
Well, fortunately, I don't have to wear that green onesie anymore. We actually retired that not long after that photo that you talk about. That's taken with me and Dave. Um, uh, that was fairly early in the filming process, and not too long after that, they were like, we don't really need you to wear that green suit. You can just wear this tracksuit. And so for the subsequent movies, I'm wearing a much more comfortable gray tracksuit than that green onesie. So that's one place where it's changed. But for the most part, we've kind of stuck with what worked. It's like we didn't feel the need to do a lot of tinkering. It's one of the reasons why we once Bradley came into the process towards the end of shooting the first movie, and we found that this sort of weird process that we used, where I would be there to work with the actors on set, and then the visual effects team would be able to use what I did to sort of sketch, to like create a rough draft of the character, and then Bradley comes in and makes it work, makes it all pop. That's what worked, and that's really what we've done. It's always a little different physically because there's different physical demands on Rocket, and I'm fortunate that I'm very limber, and I could squat down and get to where Rocket needs to be. I always wanted the other actors, when they looked at Rocket, to be looking into a pair of eyes, and not be looking at a ball on a stick or an empty space. So I would just try to get my face to wherever Rocket's face would be in the scene, whatever it took to do that. That's pretty much remained the same over 6 movies now. And sometimes it's harder than others. When there's walking and talking, it can be really challenging. And that's why I would say that from a physical standpoint, I would have to, I'm gonna have to retire as Rocket here. I'm gonna be 50 pretty soon, and so some of the squatting and moving around is getting a little hard on my ankles and my feet. So I'm gonna put that to bed, that part of my performance to bed. But yeah, no, it's always a little different. There's always little things that are a little different, but for the most part, the process has stayed the same.
Oh, amazing. And, I know James has said that Rocket's story is one that's really personal to him. Obviously, he sees himself in the character. So did that maybe add pressure to obviously coming into this movie, or the fact he's your brother, did it maybe almost, make you more confident? You knew you could do this story justice for him?
Yeah. I think I would say that it made me excuse me. I think that it made me more confident to go in and do the role. I knew from the beginning that every writer sees themselves in some way, and all of the characters that they write. You got to put a little of yourself into everything, right? But I also knew that Rocket was the one that, if James was a character, he was Rocket. And so I think I felt like I had a better handle on at least getting the first crack at sort of how that would manifest itself with these other characters. I don't know if it's more pressure exactly, but if anything, I felt like a collaborator with James at that point. That, like, if anything, it's like you're always passing the baton to some degree to the character. You write a script, and then for each one of the characters, once you cast them, you're passing the baton of that character over to them. And I think with Rocket, maybe I just needed to like have an extra hand on that baton before he passed it over to where it needed to go.
Yeah, so fascinating. And earlier you mentioned obviously that scene with Rocket and the High Evolutionary, and Chakotay in this film is just, I think, the most hateful Marvel villain you could possibly hope to find. Lovely guy,
He's
I'm
so
sure. But
yeah. I think his performance is absolutely magnificent in the movie, and yeah, as is, it seems like is always the case with great villains. He is the nicest, loveliest guy you'd ever want to meet.
Yeah, and how
in
did
real
you?
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I would imagine so. But I mean, in terms of your collaboration with him, how did that look? Because you're working on some really hard hitting and quite difficult to watch scenes. So for the two of you shooting those, it must have been, I imagine, equally as hard, or the fact he's such a nice guy made it easy, maybe.
No, I think, we've both been acting a long time.
Yeah.
And so I think you kind of put that stuff aside when it's go time, when it's like I don't think that I don't think it was hard to see him as being villainous when you're really fully present and you're watching the actor dip into the skin. It's like once he puts on that uniform where he's the high evo, um it wasn't hard to hate him, uh because he was so good at it. But yeah, and again, it's like with Rocket, I'm just kind of happy to be there for him, because that's most of my job, is to make his job easier. um and there's a world where that's a lot of times that's what actors do, but in this it's particularly so because of how different it all is.
Yeah, well, those scenes are just so good, and again, like I said, difficult to watch sometimes because he is such a nasty villain. But the two of you bounce off each other great. And another favorite scene of mine is that incredible, I guess, one-shot fight sequence above obviously the high evolutionary ship. It's a jaw-dropping bit of filmmaking. But what do you remember
Yeah,
from shooting that? Because what a sequence, and the way it comes together with the music.
that is an example of a scene where what Rocket is doing in that sequence is so complex from an animation standpoint that they can't really use me for any of that. So I'm really only there right at the very beginning when the door is open and we're heading in. But from that point on, it's like, Sean, you can step aside for this, because Rocket's all CGI during that entire sequence. So that's kind of fun for me, because then I just get to be a spectator. So I actually didn't even see that sequence until James showed me the dailies when in the middle of shooting. He's like, check out what we shot. And when I saw the dailies, it's like Rocket's not even in there yet. It's like you're just seeing sort of like, yeah, Rocket's gonna be right there. And so I was able to just kind of be a member of the audience on that one.
On the plus
I
side,
love that sequence.
oh, it's amazing. But I was going to say, on the
Yeah.
plus side, at least you get to be part of that badass team shot as they all walk together. So I
Oh
guess
yeah,
it's up for it.
for sure. Yeah.
And just to talk a few spoilers with you, another favorite scene of mine when Rocket declares himself Rocket Raccoon. It's such a triumphant
Yeah.
moment for the character, especially after everything we've seen. So that moment of him accepting who and what he is, what was that like for you to bring that to life on set? Because again, what a moment for that character.
Oh, it's magnificent. That's some of the most fun stuff. And when you get to deliver those sort of just, movie gold lines that are just like so magnificent. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a whole lot of fun. We enjoyed that. Um that stuff really moves me when he sees the word raccoon
Yeah.
on that cage, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's me. It's good stuff.
Absolutely. And Rocket's dynamic with Groot has always been such a fun part of these movies. We see a little bit less here because obviously the way the story plays out, but they get to share that really beautiful moment at the end of the film when they both are dancing. So that must have been
Yeah.
a blast for you to get that and just to carry on that little friendship that we've seen from the beginning.
Oh yeah. Well, the great thing is that James does all the
Yeah.
dancing reference for Groot. So that moment at the end when they're dancing, when Rocket and Groot dance together, that's me and James doing it on set. And so hopefully one of these days they'll release. There's a magnificent little bit of behind the scenes footage where it's actually me and James doing that dance and not Rocket and Groot. And hopefully audiences will get to catch a glimpse of that someday.
Yeah, we do see, of course, we see some of your moves as Kraglin. He's also, pulling off some great dance moves there. And I feel like I should ask who's the better dancer between you and James, but then I don't want to create some sort of like brotherly disagreement here over which of you is best.
It's me. It's me. I don't know why. I don't know why he would. I don't know why he would ever have such a. He doesn't want to get into a dance off with me. That's not going to go great for him. He knows it.
Oh, amazing. And I know actually I was reading James recently this week said this story he considered telling in maybe a Rocket and Groot project. I know there was talk of like maybe a prequel short or maybe a movie. Do you remember ever working on that? And either way, were you disappointed that it didn't happen? Or I guess all things work out well because you got to tell this story obviously in volume 3 regardless.
Yeah, I think that at some point that was a possibility, but there's always a lot of different directions. There's always a different vein to follow. But ultimately you have to choose one. And I'm proud that this really just turned into a very complete trilogy. So I don't think there was ever any work done on that other than that, we talked about it.
Yeah, for sure. And got to talk about that mid-credit scene because Rocket has had this big moment. He's the new leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and of course Kraglin is there as well. So do you feel the door is open for you to return to the MCU without James to continue their stories, or how do you maybe feel about not coming back without him? Would you not want to do that perhaps?
I never say never. My job as an actor is to go where the stories are and do my best there. James and I have a great working relationship, and I think in some capacity we'll always work together when we can, but we also don't have to. And if I'm working on something else, so be it. Just as he's often working on something else. So no, I don't close any doors there. I'm always, and particularly if uh, Kevin and Lou are on the phone, I answer the call. So we'll see.
Oh, I'm so pleased to hear that because it would be such a shame to, as great a trilogy as this has been, such a shame to say goodbye to those characters. And Kraglin in particular, he's so full of confidence in that stinger. And I was curious whether
Right.
you think, the way Quill trusts him to come in and play a big role in saving the day with no weight. Do you think maybe that is why he's almost found himself when we see him in that stinger, when he just wants to just step ahead and just deal with that issue himself? I thought a great moment for that character.
Yeah, I do. I feel like the Kraglin's really afraid of failure, which is something we can all relate to. He's afraid that he's letting people down. He's very driven by loyalty and by being a good soldier and doing the right thing. So I think in that way he's a good candidate to be a guardian and to step up and do the right thing. So it was certainly fun to play, and I think he's ready.
Yeah, for sure. It's such, like I said, it's to bring his story that way. I think from where we saw him in the first film, and of course a big part of that, Michael Rooker coming back as Yondu. So, did you guys get to share some time together on set when he came back for that scene, or was that
Oh,
more?
absolutely,
Oh, amazing.
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's always a great day to see Rooker on set. We give him a hard time, but he's a magnificent actor, and we also got to work together on the holiday special, which we actually shot simultaneous with the movie. So he was around for a little bit to do that stuff as well. I get to see Rooker a lot because we go do conventions and personal appearances together from time to time, and he's just he's he's like a brother or a crazy uncle or something like that, but he's family one way or the other.
Oh, that's awesome. And as we've said, this is a movie. It's got a lot of heavy moments in it. So I know I really appreciated the bad dog subplot with Cosmo. I thought it's a great little running thread throughout the film. That back and forth with Maria must have been a lot of fun for you to both explore on set.
Yes. It's really great having Maria there. She's such a gifted and giving actor. And so she's kind of up for anything, and she's always there when Cosmo's there. So being able to work with her was really a joy, and knowing that in some ways, just at least when she's on set, she does some of what I do for actors, and then you look at a pair of eyes, and there she is. So when I think of Cosmo, I think of Maria's face, which is funny, which I hope she doesn't mind. But yeah, she's so great. I'm glad I'm glad that Kraglin and Cosmo were able to kind of work it out. I think there's a lot of love there.
For sure. And, right at the end of the credits, there's that awesome photo of the entire cast, the Guardians suited up together. What do you remember about the day you all sat down to take that? Because what a beautiful way to sum up this franchise with all these amazing characters.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's great. The whole process, there is something kind of bittersweet about it, because there's a sadness that sets in, thinking that, oh, this may be the last time I work with some of these wonderful and amazing people, and it's meant so much to me in my life and my career. But there's also something really wonderful about creating something and then knowing that you're going to give it to an audience, and know that now it's complete, and you're going to share it with the world, because that's what we do as artists. So it's all good memories, and it's more sweet than it is bitter.
Yeah, and I guess you would say the same for maybe your last day on set, but I know you said the door is open, hopefully, to coming back as these characters, but another emotional experience.
For sure. Yeah, and hearing other people give speeches was emotional. Like Chris and Zoe would say their few words, and James said some words at the very end, and that's always the most emotional part for me, is like sort of seeing it through the eyes of other people. But yeah, it was a little sad, but who knows? Maybe there's more.
Yeah, and talking of emotion, these characters in the movies have created such a strong emotional connection. As I said, I watched this movie, I think I cried 3 times all in all, because there's just so many great moments here. But what's it been like for you to see the way Rocket and Kraglin have resonated with fans, and the love and just outpouring that goes towards you and the characters?
That's my favorite part of it, is seeing how much the movies have touched people emotionally, and how the fans really respond and say, hey, these movies really meant something to me. Or even just, I just enjoyed the hell out of these movies. That's also valuable, and so gratifying to hear. It's one of the reasons why I do go out, and I do conventions when I can, and I go and I meet fans at cons, and hear what they have to say, and hear what they liked most, and hear what their gripes are, and it's just really wonderful. It's like we have to stay in touch with what it is that the fans like, and what they want to see more of. It's really a really, really important part of the job, to stay connected to the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we all spent so much time, thinking volume 3 might not happen. Had you come to terms with maybe this story not ending the way James wanted, or were you hoping that that the people in charge would eventually see sense, as thankfully they did, and obviously James got to come back with all of you to finish this thing?
Yeah, I always wanted to be able to finish this trilogy and finish this movie, and share it, but there was a time there when I was like, I guess that's just it. We have to let it go. And for me, the hardest part about that was exactly that, was knowing that, excuse me, sorry. Um, for me, the hardest part of it was knowing that this script was finished, and that it was so excellent, and so emotional, and such a great completion of the trilogy. And then the thought that that would just never get told, that it would just be out there forever, and just we'd never be able to do it. That was the hardest thing about it. It wasn't the career stuff, like, because I'm a character actor, I'll go on, I'll do my next thing, but not being able to tell a story that should be told. That's a mini tragedy of sorts. So I'm very, very grateful that we got to finish.
Yeah, well, as a fan, I am too. And but of course, the benefit of that slight delay was you both got to go and pay a visit to the DC universe with the Suicide Squad, and I know now you've got Creature Commandos on the horizon with
Yeah.
Weasel and this character GI Robot. So I know you can't say much at this point, but what's it been like to return to that character and playing a new character and a character we might see in live action as well, of course, depending how this thing plays out.
Yeah, I love that project. The scripts are so good. We've already been doing a little recording, which is fun, and I can hint that I can tease that we're going to learn a little more about Weasel, which is going to be interesting. And I just love GI Robot so much. He's driven by one thing and one thing only, which is his hatred of Nazis and his desire to kill as many Nazis as possible. So for me, as somebody who hates fascism in all its forms, I can relate to somebody who's wanting to get out there and put the smack down on some Nazis.
Oh, I can't wait to see that come together. And, as you said, you've done a ton of projects, obviously not with James, but you have followed him as well right through his career to see him become this blockbuster filmmaker. And obviously now he's the man in charge of the DC universe. So it's quite a journey you both have gone on together, you as an actor and obviously James now.
I would say that being able to work with my brother and to see how his career has evolved has been one of the greatest joys of my own career. We root for each other, and seeing how great the work is that he's been doing and been able to continue with has really been wonderful. And I'll always be there when he needs me for something, and when he doesn't, I'll be there in the front row rooting him on.
Amazing. Well, and there's a great part in this film, when Lila tells Rocket that the story was always yours, you just didn't know it. And I'm curious, do you feel like maybe that's also representative of your journey, given how important your work as both Rocket and Kraglin has become to this franchise and just Marvel in general?
Oh gosh, I don't think the story was mine, but I do feel like it hits close to home when she says that, because to bring it back to kind of what we were talking about earlier, Rocket is created by a whole like everyone has a hand in creating Rocket to some degree, and so the story being about the family and about the collaboration, I think that that's what's true, and that's the thing that I'll keep with me going forward, is knowing that anytime you're trying to make a movie or a television show and tell a story, it's about the other people you're working with and the collaboration and all coming together to be on the same page to do something, good and to tell something that's worth telling. I don't think I'll ever forget that.
No, it's incredible. And just one final question for you, Sean. This has, as we said, been an incredible journey for you both as Kraglin, as Rocket, and obviously your journey as an actor through all these different movies, Avengers, spin-offs, theme park rides, everything. But when you look back at your time in the MCU, what would you say the one moment you're most proudest of as an actor would be?
um, as an actor, the moment I'm most proud of is probably Kraglin's response to the Ravager funeral at the end of the second movie. It's my favorite thing to go back and watch and see what I've done, but it's really hard to single anything out. I'm proud of so much of it, and I really wouldn't trade any of it.
Fantastic. Yeah. Any other moments stand out for you? Maybe personal moments, just getting to maybe like work with James, or just any of your fellow co-stars that just special moments for you, or just a fun ride all in all?
I loved I loved all the people I worked with so much. There's a moment when we were on the red carpet when the first movie was coming out and Hollywood Boulevard was shut down and the fans were going nuts. And it was the premiere of the first movie. And James kind of walked up to me and whispered in my ear, Um, you know, I think we pulled it off. And that's personally a moment that I'll always really treasure. But again, it's 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
And friends and new things that I've learned. So there's just so much. I can pull a great memory out of just about any single scene that you could pull from any one of the movies. So there's a lot there, but I get to keep it all, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, well, as a journalist, Sean, what a pleasure to speak to you. And as a fan, thank you so much for everything you've done for these movies, because what a ride it's been. And you guys definitely pulled it off. So I'm very excited, hopefully, to see more Rocket and Kraglin in your future, because we need to see these characters again.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that.
It's been awesome chatting with you. Thank you so much, Sean.
You too. All
Great
right.
to meet
Thanks.
you.